So, hope everybody's doing well. I'm hearing various people feeling ill and whatnot. I think we have a couple of things that we could follow up on that we've talked about before. Just real quick, you're going to see a proposal come through today. Nanko, I can't hear you either. It's because of my audio setup. I doubt it. Because I could obviously, yeah. I don't think your mic is working either. It might be push to talk or something. So quick update. There are some bounty rewards pending, and we're going to be putting forward a proposal to request replenishing the bounty fund, so we can pay and reward those that complete bounties, create and complete bounties accordingly. Currently, the outstanding balance of what we need to reward versus what we have in the bounty pool in squads is not sufficient. So we have ways around it, but I'd like to try and follow protocol and make sure that we stick to the process of having the multi-sig there for the reason that it's intended for. I know that there are a couple of things on top of mind, things that we've talked about over the past week or so, at least. I think reputation is definitely something on the docket for us to be able to look at and discuss further, because it is top of mind and high priority as far as I'm aware. I'm not entirely clear on what progress we've made there, outside of what's already been discussed with Lighthouse and some of the initiatives to discuss attestation and testing out attestation on the Lighthouse DAO setup. I know that there were other topics that others have been driving, so I don't necessarily want to steal their thunder, but I think we discussed next steps on some of the initiatives about minting grape, etc. I'm not sure if anybody wants to come up and discuss that today and see if we want to outline some of the steps that we already, initially outlined in prior live chats, which you can scroll up and you can see other individuals that have offered up their opinions on the matter and also helped us align on what we need to decide and steps to get there. CryptoPause, I know you've done a lot of work here. I'm not trying to, hint, get you up on stage to talk about it, but I know you've already done a great deal of work to outline steps and for us to actually align and talk about this today. Not really sure if anybody wants to jump up and talk. It seems like no one really wants to take the stage today. I guess we're all feeling under the weather. Hopefully someone would like to come up and join me and this not be a monologue of me telling everybody what we're doing as though half the people here don't know already. Hello, sir.
Oh,
How are you doing?
had the
Hello,
same
sir.
idea.
Sorry,
Hi.
I only saw one of you. You guys are too fast for me. I've been ambushed. Hi, guys. How you doing?
Doing good. A new time today.
Yeah, I joined because I was imagining you like posting a sad-faced puppy who's left alone. So I had to
It was
join.
coming. It was coming. You see into the future well. Yeah. So I guess the two topics I would focus on, just so we can make sure that we make movements forward. Unless there's something else that we wanted to discuss, if there was anything about the mango conversation or anything about that, we can always bring that up. But I think reputation is front of mind, and also the minting discussion is front of mind, right? So
Yeah.
we can pick and choose which one we want to talk about.
So we basically have those two topics, and out of necessity, we have to deal with the Saga phone situation. So we need to at least address it, because we made an investment there. So yeah, whatever you guys like.
On
I'm
and
here.
minting is what I like.
Yeah, we should try and get to a place of consensus about at least the next step, right? For the minting discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just focus on what next one or two steps are, and then we may figure out steps 1 through 10. But let's just get to what can we do in the next week or so, right? What are the next steps for us to be able to actually deliver on something that we could possibly, at least address that or put it forward for a proposal for discussion for the DAO to look at and talk about it in depth, would be my recommendation. I'm not trying to dictate how this goes, but I think that would be a wise
Hello.
decision. Hello,
I
we can hear
think
you.
I
now,
made it
Nando.
work.
Of course you did, because you're
Yeah.
a master.
Cool.
You are, legend. Not the other legend. The way that Brits say legend. Cool. Welcome aboard. Thank you for joining me, by the way, Nanko. You and me, buddy. You and me and Ryder and CryptoPause here.
Yeah,
Everybody else,
regarding
yeah.
the minting discussion,
Yeah.
I didn't see it, but or I missed it, but I had hoped for something to, or not only something, but some things. So basically, many people explaining what they're thinking about the topic and what their thoughts are, and because I'm still not sure what the best way for me would look like. So, and I can only speak for myself, but I
Sure.
had hoped with the image and the post I made, so that people have a way to start the conversation, and I'm still missing that. So I'm still don't know what others think about the whole situation and how they would approach it.
Right. And so basically, we don't really have a lot of feedback from the rest of the community or the rest of the DAO regarding assessing the current situation, right? Because just to recap, we have a grape that has not been minted yet, right? And the question is, should we mint it, and where do we put it, and how does it get released, right? What are the risks associated with it? Why not just send it to Realms? Well, Mango. Look at what happened with Mango, right? Do we send it to a specific subset of individuals or a council or a pool or whatever? That's another option, right? Identify a set group of individuals that could use a multi-sig and only allow dispersion through some. Do we give it to the DAO, have a multi-sig that the entire DAO has control over? That's another question, right? We could, at this point, I think there's a couple of questions about how complicated we want this to be, right? Versus safe, versus fast, and that we wanted to get done because, and I think, what's the urgency? I guess the question is, why is it so important for us to get it done soon, right? Versus take our time. That would be the first question I think everybody needs to be clear on. What do we think the reasoning is for that, right?
So
Sorry.
what I gathered so far is that we have a commitment to pay out tokens to private investors, and of course we could do this with the token that are already minted, but first, these tokens are for the community allocation, as far as I know. So it would be a muddling of funds. And second, we can only do this for like a few months, and we are committed to pay out for 10 years. So we have to mint either way.
Right.
That's my my knowledge of a basic situation.
Yeah, and on top of that, so we don't only have the obligation to pay or to distribute the tokens, the minted tokens, to the private investors and the team, but also to the community. And it isn't sufficient to just put it into Realms. So it's not sufficient to mint and then hold them on Realms. So the idea was, when as far as I see it, to also distribute the tokens to the community, not only to allocate them.
Right.
So
that would be the phased approach of saying, okay, first mint it so that it exists in a pool, right, in a location where it can be leveraged and utilized. And I think where that pool exists is phase one, where to put it, and who do we as a DAO put in control of making decisions on how it's distributed, and who has control over it, and what type of weighting scheme does that have? Is it a one vote per individual? Is it something that the DAO gets to dictate to collectively as a DAO? Do we use realms specifically with community style voting where weight of the current holdings dictates that? I feel like that's, that opens us up to risk, right? I wouldn't go as far as realms to deal with emitting gaining grape because
yeah,
I think it far outweighs. It becomes an attack vector pretty quickly, is what I'm getting at. There's no need, in my opinion, in my two grapes, is that there's no need for us to open ourselves up to that type of liability for no reason.
Yeah.
Just for show, right? It's sure we have moves and mechanisms and tools and steps that we know we can take. We've tested those theories out, but why tempt anybody in the first place? So I
Yeah,
think sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, for me, there are many issues, obviously, to make a decision on, but for me, it's like, as I said, one of the first things that we need to decide is like mint iteratively or mint everything at once. If we mint everything at once, what's the impact with that? Because if we mint everything at once, we technically could put the Grape into a multisig wallet where the same people who have mint authority have access to. It's the same thing basically. If someone has mint authority, they can use it to mint Grape. So they, at least in my eyes, can have the authority to use or to be part of the multisig wallet. So for me, it's more or less the impact that minting so many tokens at once would have, and what we want to do with in regards to what we are reporting on realms. So basically, what our circulating supply would be, and also what we are communicating. This is what I'm looking at.
Yep, I agree, and I think that question that you just asked, do we mint iteratively or do we mint all at once, is probably the key, and to establish and outline what the differences are, right? What's the risk of minting it all at once versus doing it iteratively? And again, I think it's going to come down to the question of who gets to make the decision in both cases. How do we mint iteratively? And is it in accordance with whatever the commitments are at each date point in time? Right? If there are certain schedules or other things that have already been committed to, sticking to those, and who decides? So I think as a topic, a singular topic, would probably be the two things at top of, right? It would be who, how, and how much.
Yeah, and to answer that, we basically need to look at the consequences. So there's no way avoiding that. We need if people in the DAO or if the DAO decides on what to do, and people are voting on it, people need to understand the impact. So they need to think about the consequences in each case.
Yep, I agree. And I think they need to be outlined pretty clearly because, for instance, the concept on security, right? I'm saying the word security, I'm throwing it around, but I might not be communicating exactly what I mean by it. When I say security, I mean, what's the risk of any single entity or group of individuals that want to try and game the system to come and, take what grape is available? Well, what's the risk of things being minted without consent or, otherwise? There's a couple of different ways to look at it. And I see the risk as being somebody gaining more grape than they should at a shorter period of time and being able to influence votes on the DAO, right? make proposals that are malicious in any way, shape, or form, and not just malicious, but just not in tune with our. They might not be intentionally malicious. They might just be bad proposals, bad ideas that end up getting forward or being pushed forward because somebody has enough grape voting weight, whilst others aren't prepared for it. So it does need to be balanced, I think, my opinion, right? And I think the phased approach is figure out who gets involved with making the decisions and what those decisions could be. And we should probably just put it in discourse as a singular question and topic by itself. Each topic that needs to be addressed, I think, should be its own discussion.
But the way I see it, we have two blocks of decisions we have to make at first, and then we can move on to the second. And the first block is that, like you mentioned, who and also where. So how are we going to store it in a new realms or on the squads, for example? And the second block is the how much decision. So everything at once or iteratively.
Yeah, because I think we agree it's going to be minted one way or the other. The question
it must be.
So that question, I don't think that's a question unless somebody wants to raise it and start throwing a monkey wrench into the whole discussion. That's fine.
Just wanted to further simplify it, so we only have.
I agree.
We have two things to decide on.
A third, there are three, because the third question for me at least, there are three at least. The third question would be, what's the circulating supply? And I think that can be, or could potentially be answered rather easily. We could say like the circulating supply is what we basically disclose to CoinGecko and whatnot, and also to Realms, is what Grape are actually or would be available. So basically, if we mint it iteratively and do it on a monthly basis, no matter whether we mint everything at once or do it on a monthly basis, only the grape that should have or should exist would be the circulating supply, and that would need to change then on a monthly basis, and also quorum would need to change.
Yeah, but it's an important thing. Yeah, sure, but it doesn't directly solve a problem, so I didn't include it in my simplification.
No, it doesn't solve the problem, but it has a potential impact, because this is what people from the outside see when they look at Grape. They see market cap, they see the tokens, they see what's available, they see.
Yes.
So
you are correct, but you're not helping in making the problems solving process easier.
Of course, if we drill down and we look at the issues separately, we can solve them one by one.
Right. Okay, so posing those questions to the DAO become the next step, right? And outlining those as clearly as possible with all their pluses and minuses, so to speak, or pros and cons.
Yeah, essentially, and that's was my initial thought with the diagram what I made, like seeing the impact of each decision, and it's not finished, of course, but gives a rough idea.
It does a pretty good job at explaining all the nuances here, and thank you for taking the time to put that together, because it's hard to get people to see what's going on in your brain. And this does a pretty good job of explaining to everybody that you've thought about this in some detail, to say the least. Yeah, thank you for that, CryptoPause, and also Right and Red for helping simplify this a little bit more. But I do think we're going to end up having some interesting debates about why we need to do it a certain way versus doing it another way. And I'm sure if there were one individual making the decision by themselves, right, there would be, a certain number of ways in which we could execute this, but that's not the goal. The goal is to have this be secure, to have this be DAO driven, right? To have transparency, to be and ensure that we have community at top of mind for any decisions that are made. Like, it's not just that we're risk averse and we just don't want a mistake to happen. It's that we want to make sure the community is protected and also taken into account and always top of mind for any discussions that happen regarding, especially the Grape token, right? Because it's meant to be part of everything we do for governance, and I can't stress the importance enough of this being done at least well, right? It doesn't have to be done the best, but finding at least the ways in which we've already figured out a lot of things in the other solutions that we've driven, right? Multi-sig approaches and ways that we make decisions on dispersing funds, and maybe those aren't perfect, but they're better than the alternatives of places that we've seen other things happen in varying ways. I don't think we can have this discussion alone. I think everybody in the DAO, especially everybody in the audience today, and even some that might not have been able to make it today, will need to chime in, and this is going to be an ongoing discussion that we're going to want to try and figure out these answers. I think this month, I would argue, let's try and put a time limit and try and get it through this first phase, the orders of decisions, and just
I'd hope to make some like decisions today. So, and I'm not sure if people understand that like every post helps for whoever is doing the majority of work, because there at some point needs to be someone implementing the steps we decided on. Right. Every like post and idea and thought that is like posted by the members of the DAO helps whoever is doing that. So
right.
Yeah.
Right. So let's just try and suggest something here then, since I think we have a good few heads on our shoulders right here, right now, right? Who would be the best to discuss quote unquote control, right? Where and who? Is that a realms? Is that a new realms? Is that a squads? I think that first one is a great question.
Are you asking now who should control the funds or who should be involved in the discussion?
I think we should just propose an idea on what we think would be the best approach, and see if the rest of the DAO agrees with that idea. Considering all the challenges. Figuring out whether or not you mint all the grape or you mint it iteratively is the secondary issue. Like I see that as, once we figured out the who and the where, then the semantics on process we can figure out, right?
Okay.
So
got behind it.
Yeah. So the question becomes, I guess,
the where has an impact of who on who is doing it, because if we decide that it is a like separate contract, obviously there will be like one person responsible. If we do it in a multi-sig format, then there could be multiple. And for me, it's like basically there is minting authority right now, so everyone who could potentially mint Grape right now, for me, has like or should have the same or could have the same responsibility for safekeeping the grape, so to say.
Right.
Because if I trust him now, I probably will trust him with the minted grape. It's like whatever.
Right. Right. I think that there's a limited number to some extent to be able to make it something that is protected and secure, but also at the same time flexible and quick in decisioning and executing on tasks that need to be done periodically. So I agree multisig is always the way to go whenever we talk about anything that has to do with funds being distributed or transferred in any way, shape, or form. This is definitely not an exception. This is actually the rule, I think, when you're dealing with what could potentially be the entire supply or the entire remaining supply, I should say, of outstanding grape, right?
Later down the road, I could see, like, if it's a multisig, to at some point bring the DAO as a multisig owner into it, so that you have like the people who kept the grape safe, then also have the DAO as an entity who has a vote, because we always need to think about how we want to make progress towards decentralization. But for now, it's more like where would we hold the grape? What's a suitable protocol or
Do you think you are
project?
finished with who? Or
As I said, for me, who is the easiest question.
okay. I would maybe add our core developers.
Yeah. And I would imagine that they're also involved in minting, so that would make total sense for them to also have control, or at least a say in what happens with anything that ends up getting distributed or put in a specific location. I would venture to say that I trust everybody that's been in charge of what they've been doing for as long as they've been doing it. They've shown time and time again, that not only are they trustworthy, but they're also considerate and thoughtful of a lot of the challenges and questions we have about risks and fairness and being just in that equation. So I wouldn't want to disrupt or do harm to anything that currently happens, or make any abrupt changes that addresses or takes away, their input that exists today, right? I think, honestly, this sounds like a separate realms. I wouldn't want to put it in our existing realms DAO, so to speak, because there are nuances that this would need to be something that's put under lock and key and protected from general usage or execution. And the reason I'm focusing on realms more than anything is because obviously realms is the tooling of choice. Not that squads isn't great, but realms kind of gives you more control over weighting and the different types of votes that you could implement for community versus counseling, right? Whereas squads is just a one vote, one user, one vote, which isn't bad, but you could do that in realms as well, and you could also do it differently in a different way. So that would be my suggestion or recommendation if we were going down the path, and just say, let's set up a new realms with a specific treasury, or a set of treasuries, so that no single treasury could be the single point of attack. And
yes and no. I also thought about splitting maybe the tokens, and I obviously also thought about squads versus realms and something similar, or even put some of the grape directly into Streamflow in order to be streamed out for like next half year or whatever. So for me, the next question was, would it really be an upside to split the funds in order to mitigate risk? Because if I split it like in 2 or 3 separate chunks, every exploit, so I have like 3 vectors of attack or 3 potential scenarios where I can lose a certain amount of grape, and these grape probably would be enough to crush everything. So with splitting them, I think I created more risk or more of a problem, because it doesn't matter if I lose like everything at once or if I lose one of the 3 caches. It's enough to do so much damage that it, basically doesn't matter. Because of the amount, obviously. And maybe I'm wrong, then please correct.
I would say that diversification is generally a good thing as long as it's within limits and it's logical, right? There are risks here that we don't know if there's anything that could technically happen in the future, if there are any bugs that we might discover over time, and et cetera, et cetera. I think having different silos for different allocations, specifically tied to each grouping, is important. I hear your point on Streamflow, but I wouldn't rely on a solution that's not open source entirely for us to be able to dictate what happens in it. One of the challenges that we were talking about before was why not use our existing realms? Just so people understand why I'm not leaning on that is because we're talking about implementing reputation, and we're talking about making changes and testing things out. I wouldn't use that as the place where I feel like our funds are the most secure, right? To be able to distribute all the grapes. So putting that one aside is part one. Part two, Streamflow is a great tool. It's great for being able to lock and to be able to distribute and set a specific time to be able to release funds. I don't think that that's a bad solution. I just don't think that that is the solution to release all funds too, right? I think realms, CryptoPause, speaking to your point on diversifying the funds, I'm going to break this down. I think putting them into their separate buckets according to where they're supposed to be allocated makes sense. And I think siloing them in a way where they can each be accessed, visible, transparent, controlled by the same group of individuals, right? But just not in one single central bucket, that if something were to happen, they all end up suffering the same fate, right? So that would be my two grapes.
But let's think about that. It would mean that we put like 350 million grape in each bucket. If one bucket is compromised, we have 250 million grape floating around. That's like...
Yeah, I thought the original tokenomics said that there was 500 million and then a potential additional 500 million, but maybe I was wrong. But yeah, the point is, would we rather have 1 billion in one pool?
It doesn't matter. For me, it doesn't matter. It's like there are 250 million grape floating around and someone has control over those, we can't do anything.
Right.
So for me, it's like tripling the risk. Yeah,
but there's also the notion of tracking the inflows and outflows, right? and aligning specific wallets or specific locations of where it's located to its destination as well, right? And I think for logistics purposes and also potentially for security, I would argue, or at least debate, that putting them in 3 separate buckets puts the right amount of this, diversification away from anything happening to any individual pool, and opens the discussion for being able to protect one pool at a time if needed, for whatever reason, right? But we would need to get to the point of also discussing, would we feel any different about it all being minted at once versus it being minted iteratively, right?
Yeah.
And making sure that the amount of funds that need to be allocated according to whatever was prescribed and decided upon actually being there so that it's visible. That way questions about its availability is no longer a question. That's just my view on it. I mean, you could set up a squads for each one of these and have the same owners in each one of the squads, or just one squads, let's say, etc. You could have one realms, one treasury, and that pretty much does the same thing. But again, I think keeping it all in one bucket would not be the way I would go about it. I do think that there is some value in it if you think about it from a perspective of, as an individual user. I have multiple wallets for a reason, right? I have one place where I stake my soul. I have one place where I have my soul to use, and kind of like a burner. And I have another place where I put my soul for, other types of fun, which is testing new things out. But it's not a burner, right? It's stuff that I know I can trust whoever it is that I need to use it. The point is, I have, as a user, I use 3 different wallets just to protect my assets, right? I would think that would make sense in this regard as well for a group or community, to make sure that there's visibility, and it helps keep track of everything individually. But again, it comes down to who controls it, and having a multi-sig approach of, a minimum of 5 individuals, 7 individuals that are all above board chosen. Huh?
Yeah, I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
It's like, for me, I always thought about the issue like having keys to your house hidden
Right.
under a rock in your front yard. So it's like you take one key and put it under a rock, and you know where to look for it. Versus I have 5 keys and put one under a rock, one under a mat, one under behind the lamp. So I have 5 potential risks for someone finding those keys and can enter my house. So it's like, is it a benefit for me to have 5 locations versus 1 location? That's my thought process here.
I hear you. And I think the devs chiming in on this part as well might be valuable.
Yeah, definitely. And Kirk, he asked a important question, and I also thought about who would manage it, and there is like a lot of overhead attached to whatever we decide.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Exactly. And how it gets distributed, I think establishing how it gets distributed today, and the new formats in which we're saying we're going to test, obviously we're going to test everything, right? There's no way that any of this would happen if squads were going to come into play, or locking, or whatever else, new features, functionality, things that we may already think we know, right? But because of the amounts of grape that we're talking about, might start to become targets of focus, or otherwise. I think establishing the people is the next piece. Establishing the people that get to make the decision. Is this a whole DAO, 1 vote per DAO member? Is this a select group of the same individuals that currently control certain types of wallets, or collectively all those individuals, into one multi-sig approach, where 1 vote equals 1? I would argue we limit it to those that we know have been entrusted and have been, above board thus far. I think that subjectively is a reputation metric that you can't really put on chain right now fast enough. to do that and kind of answers the question for us, right? And whoever obviously wants to volunteer to be part of that equation from that list of individuals is the other part of it. I would say we already have at least a known group of individuals. Let's ask if they want to be responsible and participate in this process voluntarily. Which I don't know if we're going to have the answer today, CryptoPause. I know we wanted to have an answer, but I think that might be the next step. Who gets to make the decisions here? Right? I think you clearly have spent a lot of time focusing on this, and you have some very good insight. So, I would definitely say it makes total sense for you to be participating in this discussion and also going forward with whatever next steps happen for execution, along with the devs with Billy Kirk, say Dean, say Will's friend. I'm just calling out names for those that we know have participated and been part of those types of discussions in the past, so we can move that forward. Unless anybody has any objections, of course. I don't want to call anybody out unnecessarily or unfairly without their wanting to. So.
Yeah, I think we have quite a few people who would be fitting for that position.
Yeah. And it could also be this is the phase 1, right? And then we talk about phase 2 as something where once we've established everything that needs to be done, we've secured it in a way that we know we feel comfortable with it, then we can start talking about adding to it, right? Or making adjustments or changes within that group that if they feel comfortable with it, then we can move forward. It doesn't need to be, the perfect end state right now. It just needs to be the best possible outcome for us to make sure it's secure and it's nimble and capable of being executed upon the right way. That's my 2 grapes, and I don't know if we want to continue talking through it or coming up with the final touch points of the questions that answer these challenges, so we can actually come down to here's the answer, right? Here are the people that we think. Here are the ideas. Create a new realms. Okay, that's 1. Do we create multiple treasuries within the realms? Yes or no? Do we create a multi-sig approach? Do we use Streamflow? I think those 3 or 4 things are questions we could put into polls. We can get into a discourse today and get through this week. Maybe recap again on Tuesday.
I don't know how should I phrase it. It's disconcerting, disappointing, or maybe a tad bit of sad.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we talked about this now on at least 2 other occasions. Paul's made the post on Discourse, where he also made the very good flow chart. So
yep,
you can look at it and don't have to read a wall of text and can get a feeling for it visually.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, what I'm seeing is who's talking about this. It's Paul. It's you. It's Wales was on stage one time talking about it a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Billy has been speaking about it as well.
Yeah.
And I think anybody that's currently discussed it and active in the discussion are the ones that are probably going to drive it. And I think everybody's curious about where this is going to go. I don't know if everybody feels comfortable discussing this either, right? The community might feel concerned that, this is a difficult conversation and maybe they're entrusting everything that we're saying. And that's why we're not hearing any backlash or, complaints. It's like,
that's
we
the
like
positive
you.
spin on it.
Yeah, that's the way I like to look at it, right? It's
yeah.
As always, it's always optimistic at Grape.
But then I should maybe also phrase optimistically and just say, people come out, just write any questions you have. Maybe we missed something, we overlooked something. Also, all DAO members, feel free just to post on Discourse when we know you are there. We would love to drive a conversation forward together with you. And yeah, that's the positive spin. Thank you for
Yep.
making this positive, Archimedes. Very nice.
It has to be. I mean, it is positive. We're getting to a place now. I think we're getting to a place where we're really, we've managed to do a lot of things. There have been a lot of people that have contributed to making this a DAO, and I think each one of us, in our own respective worlds of what we do on a day-to-day basis, we're never prepared for having to have discussions with 20 people about a decision that we normally make by ourselves or with a smaller group of people. So I think just by virtue of the fact that everybody wants to be here and listen to this and talk through these discussions, I think we really need to remember we all bring something to the table. Everybody's opinions are valid, and a lot of the questions and concerns that we all want to try and address. Yes, we want to progress. We want to move forward. We all want to be productive, but we also want to protect ourselves from things like, as I think Kirk pointed out accurately, the whole concept of Mango 2 weeks ago or a few weeks ago.
Yes.
That's not. You would never have expected that to happen to a group like Mango. They have open source, they have this, they have that, they have the other, and still, maybe there's a point in discussing, the weaknesses of different models, and maybe those models aren't perfect. And what we're discussing right now kind of needs to have a little bit more certainty around it. It's not, oh, we're going to put a proposal on to talk about emitting funds that have to do with the bounties or the incentives pools or anything else. This is much broader, much bigger, and much more impactful. And the community will have a say in what happens at some point very soon. It's just this part needs to be done so carefully and well that we can actually allow the community to do what they need to do after. Right. That's my two grapes on that. I did put forward a proposal for the bounty fund, by the way. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to segue or jump off topic, but I just wanted to say there's a bounty proposal, a bounty funding proposal in Realms, because the current bounty fund does not have enough grape to reward for the creation and completion rewards that are existing or pending. So if everybody can take a moment to vote today or this week within the next few days, I would greatly appreciate it. And that'll help us get the ball rolling. If anybody has any issues or concerns, please feel free to ping me.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to the point.
Maybe one point on the bounty situation. Yeah, we did a funding round for bounties way back, and since then we have been pushing on, getting many things done.
Yep.
Yeah, for user funds we could go into details, but we are mainly let's go out on a give you a rough idea. Most of our expenses are development bounties. That's currently really what we're focused on, driving the protocol further.
Yep. And there's work that's already been done, and the existing bounty that needs to be rewarded for creation and rewards is 120,000, and the existing grape that exists in the pool is 73,000. So we're shy roughly 50,000 grape. And when we first set up the bounty pool, there was 400,000 grape added. And I think that's lasted us as long as it has, unless it's been topped up and I just missed the most recent top up. But that 400,000 lasted us since May, I believe, which is impressive if I'm not missing some other updates that have happened in between. So this top up is the same as that prior one and continues to be, and a reminder to anybody that wants to run bounties and wants to propose them, create them, etc. This is part of our DAO. This is part of the process. Yep. But coming back to brass tacks, the minting conversation, I don't think we're going to come to an answer today, but I think we got closer, right? Proposal will be some level of proposals will be, 50-50 chance on whether or not it's a separate realms or some other mechanism if someone wants to come up with another idea on squads or whatever. And then splitting it up into separate treasuries, and then who gets to control it collectively. So we can at least solidify that. Then we get to the next questions. Do we mint it all at once? Do we mint it iteratively?
Yeah. Kirk just wrote in the live chat, if I understood him correctly. He means that in the long run, we will be able to directly stream from realms. So that would be great.
That would be ideal.
Yeah.
That would be ideal, I think, at the end of the day. And I think Kirk he's pointing out some things that have to do with not that we don't like certain tools or we don't like certain teams. That has nothing to do with it, right? This has everything to do with us being able to see down to the protocol level and the code level where the funds are going and where they're sitting, right? Not just can we use a tool to disperse them, right? Closed source versus open source is not a small thing, and part of the thing about Mango that I found very interesting that people who may not have paid attention to it did or didn't notice, but somebody had brought something up in their Discord months before the issue that happened, and it seemed as though somebody had noticed, but it wasn't addressed at the time. So, I could see from a development standpoint, feeling anxious about funds going somewhere where we're not entirely in control or aware of how things are built, and bugs not being found because maybe no one's actually tested or seen those bugs yet. And with the amount of grape that we're talking about, they suddenly become the topic of conversation or target or whatever. That to me is, yeah. And I think, Kirk, you're pointing it out correctly of saying how the allocated new grape is issued, how does this affect voting, and then the quorum that needs to be adjusted once we've gotten to the point of discussing the iteratively and full blown emission or putting out all the grape. Then we also need to look at, okay, well, if there's a schedule to when it gets emitted or when it gets released, and if Streamflow was part of the equation or not, or some other tooling, even if Realms could distribute it directly, then we have to have the discussion on, well, how much of that grape actually ends up back in the DAO, and how much of that actually ends up affecting quorum, and can we actually get proposals pushed forward, or does somebody get an outsized amount of grape and just come and do we end up just centralizing and reversing all the work we've been doing over the last 10 months, 12 months? Yep.
Yeah. My main concern is did you address Kirk's recent writing in live chat?
I'm not sure. I think I was speaking to it and just explaining the fact that he's right.
Okay. Yeah, that's Kirk is often right, so that sounds reasonable.
No, I was basically exclaiming my support for what he's saying, and that these are parts of the equation once we've gotten past the first phase, who, what, where, right? Then the hows start to. That's a more complicated conversation, to be honest. Like, how does it get distributed, and what do we do with quorum, and what are the rules, and do we have any rules? Do we need any rules? Blah 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 blah. Right? There's all these things that we could just. I don't want anybody to have to sit and listen to me any longer. I think I put Sergeant Savage to sleep.
Don't be so hard on
Good night,
yourself.
brother.
I wanted to add that for me, the main problem is what are we doing as a stopgap solution? So in the long term, we will be looking at realms and at quorum and stuff, right? But how are we going to get there? Because as I understood it, we need to make this monthly payment. Otherwise, certain parties affiliated with Grape will be in breach of contract. So we can't just wait around until the realms is working. We need to do something.
Yeah, my understanding is it can be done regardless of all of it being minted, right? Like, I don't know if we need to answer.
Okay, Kirk says we can do it temporarily with Streamflow.
Yeah.
I agree. So I mean, it works for me.
Yeah, for a limited amount, yeah, I would say that that's okay, as long as it's not all the grape in the universe.
All the grape. Oh, the goat woke up.
Just to tell us he's going to sleep because my voice is so soothing. Yeah, so we've spent a considerable amount of time talking about this. I think the next steps is us getting it in writing with the questions that become polls, and have everybody chip in and chime in on what they think about these discussions, because I think we could come up with these ideas all day long. I think CryptoPause has a really good understanding of, what he thinks could be the approach. I think, they're putting the cart before the horse is not necessary in this case. We just need to figure out the next steps and then move each one at a time. We could go set up a realms right now and set up the framework without minting anything, right? We don't really need to do the next steps unless we agree that that's the right way to do it. But nothing stops anybody here from creating the realms, right? To actually have the framework ready to go, and then showing, here's the realms, and here's here's the way that this will work, etc., and have the poll make the decision for us so that the whole DAO has something to chime in on. And because we know the DAO has the ability to do one member, one vote in discourse, we can gain a little bit more consensus that way rather than have to worry about on-chain at the moment, because that's going to come later. That's just my two grapes. And recap on Tuesday.
Yeah, the main thing, so nobody is stopping anybody from taking action. If somebody wants to go ahead and solve this, who can, then go ahead. The other things, for the question how we are going to move it, we got an answer today. Got the answer that we going to do temporarily via Streamflow, and then look at long term. We want to look at doing it directly via realms, so eliminate this possible point of failure, which is Streamflow. And that's one T crossed, one I dotted, or what we're saying is. And the other thing is also who should do it. We also got kind of an answer. People who currently have a mint authority and who are core developers. And where we got the new realms. So the only open, let's not say only, but the main open question I still have on my sheet is how much to mint all at once, iteratively, if iteratively, what amounts and what frequency.
Great questions. I don't have the answer. My first inclination is iteratively. That's my feeling, but I know that there are other people that might lean towards just get it all out of the way, and then if the mechanisms are in place to release it properly, then it doesn't matter whether or not you do it iteratively or not. It's still not going to get all. It's still not all going to get released in one fell swoop anyway. But I like avoiding the temptation. Like when I have chocolate around the house, I know I'm going to eat the chocolate, even if I tell myself I'm only going to have one bite.
At some point, it will end up inside you.
Correct. Correct. Exactamundo.
Is that a word?
I don't think so, but it's found its way into my vocabulary, and I like it.
That's fascinating because it's sometimes used colloquially in German too.
There you go. I'm learning. I'm still learning, and I need to learn. I need to learn how to spell in German as well. I've learned this now.
You're doing great.
Thanks, brother. All right.
One possible avenue forward I see is that for example, we could do this like 6 months. Do it for 6 months. Mint it out to put it into new realms with responsible people, and then set up a stream flow for the 6 months. And 6 months in crypto is like one eternity.
It's not a bad idea. And I like the idea of doing it in phases, right? Doing it in chunks and small pieces that are chewable, and we can digest them and learn fail fast if it's wrong, without jeopardizing everything.
Yes. There's the position where it's just Waze is of the opinion we should do it in one fell sweep. But my perspective is, if we are not going to stick with Streamflow, when we have to come in and adjust it at some point either way, because we are switching over from Streamflow streaming to SPL governance, aka Realm streaming. So now it's guaranteed that we have to adjust something, and then we can just do it iteratively.
Yeah, and it's important to remember that the timing on distribution to the community versus everyone else needs to be something that we take into account. And I think community focus needs to be front of mind with any decisions that are being made. How the community gets rewarded in parallel to anything that has to happen, so that we offset any major changes or shifts that skew the ability for anybody to gain more weight in a shorter period of time, even if others have been here longer and contributed more.
Yes, but I mean, what we are right now setting up is only about sending the investor what way.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm just saying I like to keep that in mind and try and put that into the mix of the conversation in some way, shape, or form, where we're thoughtful and mindful of it. Not, I don't want to make this complicated. I just want to make sure we're thinking about it.
Yeah. I feel like we got ahead today.
Yeah, I think we have some good next steps for us to move that conversation forward. If CryptoPause feels that way, I know he's a perfectionist that likes to have his ducks in a row.
His ducks in a row. That's a funny picture.
I'm definitely waiting for more input, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
you're still, yeah, we didn't put you to sleep.
No, I'm eagerly listening.
Awesome.
Then again,
so,
I basically, or I could imagine what Archimedes would say, so it was no surprise.
right. That's why I do less talking lately, because I know you know me now, right? And we're very similar in a lot of our approaches. So I'm like, whenever you're speaking, I'm like, it's a little bit of a relief. And I think Writer and Red also, I think we share a lot of the same sentiments on things. You know, we could disagree at certain points, but the general notion of us being cautious and always keeping community front of mind, I think, is a general feeling and value we all share. So it's all good.
Yeah, I'm not at the GDI level that pause is at yet, but I'm also like talking with you.
Likewise. Okay, so I guess the next thing, and I know we're at the hour and a half mark, so I want to try and give the attention, if possible, to reputation and see if we're missing next steps there. I know that there was the discussions with Lighthouse about attestation. I know that we're also, I think, expecting awaiting an update on the VSR for us to be able to use any metrics that even tie to reputation. So maybe we table that until there are developments that actually enable us to move forward. But I think we did have some open questions about what else we needed to do with reputation, which was the Scientist Joe version that needs some clarification.
For reputation, I'm looking forward to what will come out of the workshop that they are doing and that we are sponsoring. I want to mention here we spent some bucks on this. We have ownership in this. What will come out of this workshop for the next steps, because we now have a system from Lighthouse that is usable, and we have now to see if we can make it work for us or if we need changes or something like that.
Awesome. So I guess we'll recap it on Tuesday's call, maybe discuss it further with I'm looking for the name. I don't see him in the audience. Patrick. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I know that there's been a lot of other conversations going on, and they're all preparing for breakpoint. So I imagine people are a little distracted or busy with other things as well. So want to give them the opportunity to speak on it and chime in. Was there anything anybody in the audience thought?
We can't step off now. We still have the phones.
Oh, I'm not stopping. I wanted to cover reputation as a topic and make sure we were all on the same page on what's next. That's all. So we're good. Yeah. Let's talk phones. Let's talk Saga, the epic Soul Saga.
Yeah. So from what I gathered, we have to mint these Saga passes now as a DAO somehow. Do we have a realms instruction for that?
A great question. I don't know.
Yeah. Hey, Avid. How's it going? Oh, and he's gone.
Psych.
Then let's just see if what happens if I say I want to do a proposal. I see pre-order Saga phone.
Yeah, that's for the DAOs initially.
Yeah, but I don't see any other option. Shouldn't this be done by a proposal, or mustn't it be done?
Yeah, I guess there is no solution right now, but what I saw, and Avid Learner posted it, I don't know where, was it in Grape Chat? There was a tweet regarding that.
Yeah, I thought was it Avid that posted it? I'm not sure.
I'm seeing a tweet by Craigs. Are you referring to that one?
I think it might be in the DAO chat. Yeah.
Yeah,
Avid,
might be DAO chat, yeah.
Yeah. Avid posted it as in response to you saying, Laura Shen responded saying, yes, there will be slightly different process for DAOs. We will be in touch shortly. So I guess we have to wait on them to get back.
Maybe we should just push out a GIF with don't know, a grape waiting.
Thanks,
As a
Daiki. Daiki posted the same the tweet that that David posted earlier in the DAO chat.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how to do it, and yeah, we need to see.
Because this tweet, this mint is only open for a few days, right?
Yeah, deadline is tomorrow, as I understand it.
Uh,
And I don't know whether this is possible to do it
Mr.
on
D,
Realms in this short amount of time.
Good.
So there is no way to vote on anything, obviously. So it needs to happen through a council token, but maybe other DAOs did it differently. So,
this
quick
looks
question:
like a situation where we need to talk to people.
since we are talking about Realms, who uploaded this image and why? And why did Realms do that? It's like whenever I'm looking at it, I get furious.
Good question. I honestly don't know. I don't think it's bad, is it? Or
Yeah,
is it a
I
question of
immediately
security?
thought, okay, this is how it should have looked. Like the second screenshot I made, I just moved it a bit, but it takes
Yeah.
basically half of my screen, and I can't read proposals. It's just whoever thought of that it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Okay, back to Saga.
Yeah. So just for edification, Laura Shen is marketing, is head of marketing, I think, at Solana. So that seems to be a legit response, but from Solana saying that DAOs will be taken care of, etc. And I know that this discussion started. Sorry, I see. Dean posted in discourse, according to what CryptoPause shared. So it looks like the next steps are getting the people that had been part of the discussion in the beginning for the pre-order to sign up.
Hello guys,
Hey,
can you
but
hear me?
yeah, you're a bit quiet.
Okay. Um, I saw Dean's post on Discourse about an invitation from Solana Mobile to be part of the pilot program for the Saga phone. Going through the docs, I saw like I think there will only be 30 projects admitted into the pilot program. And likely you have to submit like an app or that is Sega compatible. So I'm thinking if we go ahead applying for it, we're gonna submit grape.art as the app or stuff like that. What are you guys' thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm guessing the response from the tweet is actually Dean's discourse post with the sign up. I know we had this conversation when we were doing the pre-order, right? And there were a number of individuals that were added to account for the pre-order. So there was a certain number of individuals. I don't know if there's a new limit on that or if that's the same, but I would look and venture into the previous discussion around the Saga phones and look at who was selected as part of that equation in the beginning. Unless anybody has any objections or thoughts on that outside of that conversation. Right. So we had already identified a certain number of individuals. They had already been selected, or at least we had done a head count, so to speak, when the pre-order went in. That pre-order went to Solana. Now Solana is saying that they want us to be part of the pilot program. I'm assuming that's the same thing. This is the next step from that tweet. This is my understanding.
Yeah, like according to my understanding, I think it's different because like only 30 projects will be part of the pilot program, and we get to use the Saga before the um, like official date of launch or stuff. Don't you guys have access to the docs being shared on Discourse?
Yeah, my mistake. I called it a form. It's actually a doc that outlines what needs to be done for the next steps. I assume that that's connected to, again, to the tweet. No? Am I mistaking this and connecting the dots wrong? If anybody knows the answer to this, it'd be great if you could respond. If not, we're just we're fishing in a barrel here, and there are no fish. Thank you, Taiki. Awesome. Thanks for providing that. Yeah, the list is alphabetical. It's not in order of priority of who should get it first. Just sorry, I found that funny. Okay.
But we didn't really reserve 50 slots, didn't we? Wasn't it like 10 or?
I also don't know how much they cost, and if we're paying for them, imagine they're $1,000 a pop. That's what, 50,000? I don't know about this. I don't think we knew. Yeah.
The
Sorry.
reserve was, I think, the reservation was 100. Yeah, the down payment was 100. But if we want to cash that in so currently there are 33 names on this list, so that would be 33,000.
Yeah. Thanks, Avid.
We have I see some names here who have left us, so they could be scratched.
Yeah, that's an easy question, right?
Otherwise, the DAO has to yeah. Maybe what we could do is we move the names that have left us, and then we pose the question to the DAO if we
yeah, or replace with people that we think are viable for adding to the list that weren't there before, potentially. Like I saw Nanko asking to be included if possible. If we had 5 people that left, I think it's fair to say that one person can replace at least one of the 5.
yeah. And then we could make a vote to simplify it. I think I think we all agree that we want to be somehow involved in this next step in the evolution of Solana.
Agreed.
And so we could pose the question, do we want to make the full list or like a reduced list of, I don't know, maybe only 10 people or so?
Yep. And I think anybody that's involved in development, the whole point of the phones is meant to be not just a new device that provides access, right? Anybody who's involved in QA and testing tools and stuff like that is part of the equation. Anybody who's building or developing is part of the equation.
Which kind of a tangent here, but what about Doggy Dog, the Gilder dude? Any updates on reeling him in?
Good question. I did see the comment on that.
Have you degens laced his cola with narcotics and reeled him in yet, or what's the status?
Great question. I have not been involved enough to know the answer to that question, so I don't want to speak on anybody else's behalf or on behalf of Doggy Dogs. But I did see. I think it was Billy that put forward that conversation after CryptoPause had raised it. So I think that's another next step to catch up on Tuesday potentially. Just get that out of the way and.
Yeah.
Maybe call on Doggy Dog to come join us on Tuesday, and I doubt anybody would have any objections to having an awesome Solana contributor be part of the Grape DAO, to be honest. But if anybody has any objections, that's it's up to you.
This is not good content, Alex. Yeah, the content has been rejected. Just looking for the GIF. Here it is. Yeah, and I would be also to maybe consider if he maybe didn't have the opportunity or something like that to add him to our Saga phone list if we got place on it.
Yep, and I think your point about people not being here anymore and just filling in, and then also reviewing that list and just coming down to brass tacks on who should makes sense. Sorry. I don't want to capitalize too much on talking for on behalf of everybody's sake, but I definitely want to make sure.
I'm trying to include people by reading the chat.
Yes, sir. I see that.
But
yeah, it's fun to try and figure out what people are talking about versus what we are.
Obviously, mainly GIFs right now.
I feel like I should respond, but I don't want to feed the beast.
I had to clown gun the island guys.
I should have known better.
Fuck are you doing, Dynamite?
All right. So the question now becomes:
Taki deleting your thingy.
I would like. I'm sorry, guys. I need to focus on what we're trying to accomplish here. So I think CryptoPause made a really good suggestion about bringing Doggy Dog closer into the community. I think that's definitely something worth evaluating and understanding what it is that would be expected of the community versus what it is we'd expect of Doggy Dog. I think that conversation should be something we focus on for Tuesday and put it on the agenda. More specifically, and also potentially call him to come join us and give us a quick recap of what he's doing. I think anybody using Gilder knows what he's doing. It's just probably more valuable for us to actually talk to him as well and get his sense of what he'd like to do in terms of participation. Extending it would be the point, right? Extend it to him and let him give us some feedback about what he thinks he wants to do. All right. Any objections to that? Bringing it back up on Tuesday. I think we have 2 things at least, or 3, to recap on Tuesday, and then finalize and get a final decision in. So we start off November with a nice little kick. Fermenting discussions, reputation, and new membership.
Yeah, and maybe in regards to Zagaphone, I also posted in Realms Discord and asked Sebastian, but probably could have done it here, but I created the proposal and we talked a bit about it, so I referenced that. Maybe the guys have some idea.
Dankeschön.
Gern geschehen. You're welcome.
See, that's what I need to learn. I need to learn the response to Dankeschön. All right. Well, I have nothing else to add. I think I wanted to make these things apparent to the rest of the group and make sure that the DAO had an opportunity to discuss some of it and also keep it at front of mind as we discuss it and push things forward. I think Tuesday is going to be fun.
Yeah. In regards to Doggy Dog, I talked a little bit with him, and he seems to be in talks regarding merging with another team. So I told him that we're definitely interested in working with him in general, and that he should figure out what he wants to do and how he wants to continue with Gilder. And he suggested a call. So
Yep.
Yeah.
That'd be great. And thank you for doing that, because that was unknown information before to me. So good to know.
Yeah, I saw him. I like, as I said, I like Gilder really much, and I use it. And I saw like the Discord struggling, and like it's a shame basically. So I thought, okay, we need to do something about it, or at least we should discuss it whether we want to do something about it.
Yep. I think Gilder's a fantastic tool, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I did sign up for the testing, and I'm still using it and messing around with it. And I think it's great. So I agree with you. And I also like Doggy Dog, by the way. He's been very, not just active, but anytime that there's been anything that's popped up where somebody's discussing something about feature functionality that we might like or need, he's been very proactive of reaching out to people.
Yeah.
I've noticed. He reached out to me after I commented in the DAO chat or live chat and said, can you give me more information about what this is that you're talking about? Which, of course, catering to my ego, I have no problem talking. But I did give him a heads up and say, look, some of this stuff is a pipe dream, and I don't know if it makes sense for you to have to deal with it. It was just me using Gilder as an example. But he's very receptive. I really like his attitude, and generally he seems to be all well-rounded type of individual, just like every other Grape member we have here. So great suggestion, CryptoPause. I really liked it personally.
Yeah, definitely. And I wasn't joking when I was talking about Grape Art Identity app. Like, it's something we could explore, and or maybe have like a hybrid thing going. But I think it's like having something on mobile, just not as a web app, but as a dedicated app, is something that not many projects have.
The goat is calling you out, pause. He just posted in chat that he had the idea 2 months back. You should give clout.
Yes, Dynite, you are a visionary. We love you. That was never a question.
See, it's live chat. Not even Me6 acknowledges live chat. Live chat is just for like joking around and.
But yes, good point. I think just to give CryptoPause a little bit of credit here. I think the focus was less about necessarily Gilder, but more about Doggy Dog. Although Gilder, at the time, you were 100% right, Dynite. No one should ever doubt you, ever. And everything you come up with as an idea should always be the only thing we ever decide and do. So I bow
would
before you.
encourage caution.
I bow before you. Anyway, I'm not. I'm gonna call it here though, because I do have some things I have to deal with today, and I wanted to make sure I gave enough time to the DAO call today and look at where I can help contribute. So I'll be jumping in. One thing I wanted to share with updates on metrics for the reputation discussion. Thanks to Kirk's and Billy's the update that they made within Grape Art, where you can go and pull votes. I managed to pull all those down manually, pulled all the CSVs, compiled them, and I've put them in to the same spreadsheet where I'm capturing all the metrics that I've shared with everybody in the Google Doc. I'll share that later. But what I'm doing now, because the data that comes out of the voting information is not directly correlated to the wallets that are staked, it's connected to the programs. Who else uses the tool, Kirk, out of curiosity? Uh-oh. I'm waiting
my
for
bet is deep DAO. My bet is deep DAO.
it's coming for a mic drop. Hold on. It's coming. Aha. Aha. Interesting. Oh, Dynite's trying to throw monkey wrenches into the conversation by showing I have, if we're being fair, Dean might have been the first person to bring up Gilder, and we also started discussing Gilder around the time that the whole discussion on voting for hackathon projects came up. So we did that collectively as well.
Gilder was on
just to
Dean's
be
list,
fair,
and there was a feedback round. So
yeah,
there was
we
a lot of
discussed it
talks.
during the hackathon. They won the hackathon in our pool of they had won a while ago. So I think collectively there's some really great minds here. But coming back to stop distracting me. Coming back to Kirk, coming back to what Kirk was saying, and I said that stop distracting me with all humility and joking. So for some pandas that got an airdrop, interesting. Very interesting. So that tooling is coming in handy for more than just me, which is great. Hopefully, the point I was trying to make and trying to summarize here, that data that's going to come down with all the votes and all the participation is going to help feed into the discussion that we're having on incentive rewards model for voting, which is something that, as you know, we had brought up back in March, discussed it in April, discussed it in May, and it kind of fell to the wayside. And one of the reasons was because we didn't really have access to the voting data as readily and easily. And I tried using all sorts of tools to get there, but it wasn't efficient, and trying to pull that data was wonky, to say the least. So just so you guys understand why it's complicated now, is because the data that comes out of the proposal information and the voting information are not the actual staked wallets. They're the program wallets, or the wallets that are actually connected to realms, not to the stakers, the users that are the owners. And connecting the dots on that is just an additional step. It's not hard. You can use SoulScan API to pull the wallets that created those accounts, etc. And that's basically what I'm doing. And it's not easy to pull them all at once because, unfortunately, there are limits on the APIs. So it's iterative, and you have to go through one at a time. But with that said, that's all for now from me. So thank you all very much for the time that you've taken today. And writer, CryptoPause, avid learner, thank you guys for not leaving me alone on stage, and Nanko for starting it off, joining in with me on stage to have the conversation. And anybody listening in, thanks for taking the time and listening to me drone on.
Thank you for a good discussion.
Likewise. All right. No further ado. I will call it and wish everybody a wonderful Sunday. Morning,
Bye,
evening,
Demetrius.
afternoon. Bye.
Have a good one.
Later.
Bye-bye, guys.